Good morning, and welcome to our program. Today we're tackling a deeply significant question. Are protests truly an effective method for bringing about social and political change? It's a topic that often ignites passionate debate and has visibly shaped history. To help us navigate this, I'm pleased to introduce our debaters. First, Ben, who champions the transformative power of protests, and Dr. Sarah Chen, a political analyst offering a critical viewpoint. Welcome.
Thank you, Elena. It's essential to discuss this. My stance is firm. Protests are not merely symbolic. They are vital and demonstrably effective instruments for social and political progress, essential for a thriving democracy. History provides abundant evidence. Consider the civil rights movement in the United States. Landmark changes like desegregation were fueled directly by persistent marches, sit-ins, and widespread demonstrations against injustice. Similarly, women's suffrage movements globally achieved the right to vote through relentless, often arduous, public protests. These were not minor adjustments, but fundamental shifts in rights. The anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, drawing strength from both international and domestic protest, was instrumental in dismantling a brutal and oppressive regime. These victories underscore their power. Crucially, protests empower marginalized communities. They provide an indispensable platform for those whose voices are often systematically ignored or suppressed by conventional power structures, allowing them to articulate grievances directly. Furthermore, protests are crucial for raising public consciousness. They highlight injustices that might otherwise remain concealed, shaping public debate and forcing society to confront uncomfortable truths. The right to protest is a cornerstone of a healthy democracy, a manifestation of active citizenship. It is a powerful check against complacency and the erosion of civil liberties.
Thank you, Elena and Ben. I acknowledge the historical significance of protests and, without question, the democratic right of citizens to engage in them. This is a fundamental principle. However, while their historical importance is undeniable, I contend that the actual effectiveness of protests in contemporary society is not absolute. It warrants a careful, critical examination, moving beyond romanticized notions. The reality is that outcomes are highly variable. For every protest that contributes to tangible change, many others do not achieve their stated goals, and some, unfortunately, can be counterproductive. These counterproductive instances might involve hardening opposition, alienating potential allies, or diverting attention from core issues. We must also consider potential negative consequences that can arise from demonstrations. These include public disruption affecting ordinary lives, economic costs, and regrettably, the potential for protests to escalate into violence, which can increase social polarization rather than fostering constructive dialogue. Moreover, the success of any protest is heavily contingent on numerous factors: the clarity of its objectives, strategic planning, leadership quality, media portrayal, and the prevailing political climate. Protests are often most effective when strategically integrated with other forms of advocacy, like lobbying or legal challenges, rather than as an isolated tactic. A nuanced view is essential.
Ben, Dr. Chen has highlighted the variability of outcomes. How do you specifically define, quote, effectiveness for a protest, particularly if legislative change isn't immediate?
Effectiveness isn't solely about immediate policy wins, Elena, though those are important. It crucially includes shifting public discourse, significantly increasing awareness, and building solidarity among affected groups and their allies. Placing critical issues onto the political agenda, forcing them into public and governmental debate where they were previously ignored or marginalized, is a major success in itself. This agenda-setting power is vital. We must also consider the long-term impact. Many successful social movements saw their ultimate goals realized years, even decades, after initial waves of protest began. Patience and persistence are key.
While I agree that raising awareness is a component, Ben, I'd challenge the notion that awareness alone constitutes true effectiveness if it doesn't eventually translate into tangible improvements or concrete actions for the people affected. There's a significant risk of slacktivism, or purely performative protest, where the act of demonstrating becomes an end in itself, providing catharsis for participants, but achieving little systemic or lasting change.
Dr. Chen, Ben emphasizes the agenda-setting power. Can you elaborate on circumstances where protests might actually hinder, rather than help, a cause's progress, perhaps even backfiring?
Protests can hinder progress if tactics alienate potential allies, or if violence or unclear messaging discredits the movement. In some cases, they can provoke repressive state responses, which is counterproductive to achieving positive change.
Let's discuss inherent risks. Ben, how can movements mitigate dangers like violence, or their message being co-opted?
Mitigation strategies are paramount. The vast majority of protest movements advocate for and practice disciplined, nonviolent action. This isn't accidental. It's a core strategic principle. Strong internal organization, clear communication channels, and training for participants in de-escalation techniques are vital for maintaining peace and the integrity of the message. We must acknowledge the risk of external elements seeking to provoke violence or co-opt the message. However, the peaceful intent of the many should not be overshadowed by the actions of a few. Maintaining that moral high ground is essential.
While disciplined nonviolence is ideal, Ben, control in large, emotive crowds can be fragile. Maintaining it consistently is a huge challenge for any protest leadership. Unfortunately, negative incidents, even if isolated or provoked, often get disproportionate media coverage. This can easily overshadow the core message and the legitimate grievances being expressed. This makes me wonder if alternatives like strategic litigation, targeted lobbying, or well-crafted digital campaigns might offer more precise impact with fewer of these inherent public order risks.
Dr. Chen mentioned alternatives. Ben, how do protests fit with other political actions like lobbying? Are they separate or complementary?
They are absolutely complementary, Elena, and often work in synergy. Protests can generate the public pressure and political will that makes lobbying or legal challenges more potent and harder to dismiss. They visibly demonstrate widespread concern, making institutional channels more receptive. One often amplifies the other significantly. In closing, Elena, Dr. Chen, while the complexities and risks are undeniable and warrant careful navigation, I must reaffirm my conviction. Protests remain an indispensable tool for democratic societies. They are a powerful, often irreplaceable catalyst for achieving justice and progressive social and political change when other avenues prove insufficient or unresponsive to people's needs. Skepticism, while analytically useful, sometimes overlooks the raw human impetus for protest, the deep-seated need to challenge injustice, to give voice to the voiceless, and to compel societal reflection. The spirit of protest is active citizenship. To abandon it or to excessively dilute its potential through undue caution is to risk uncritically accepting an unjust status quo. It is the courage to demand better.
Thank you. My closing position reaffirms the necessity of a pragmatic and highly critical approach to protests. Their historical role is acknowledged, but modern application demands careful, strategic consideration. Passion and public presence are important, as Ben rightly highlights. However, for this energy to translate into sustainable, meaningful change, it must be channeled strategically, often alongside other methods. Relying solely on mass mobilization can be a gamble with unpredictable outcomes and significant downsides. It is not a panacea for all complex societal ills we face today. True, Lasting progress often results from a sophisticated blend of strategies: policy development, negotiation, legal work, and yes, sometimes well-executed protests. The key is choosing the right tools for the specific context.
Thank you both, Ben and Dr. Sarah Chen, for your insightful and compelling arguments today. You've certainly given our audience a great deal to consider on this complex subject. We've heard Ben's passionate defense of protests, emphasizing their enduring democratic significance, contrasted with Dr. Chen's call for a nuanced understanding of effectiveness, risks, and alternatives. We encourage our audience to reflect on these diverse perspectives on achieving change. Thank you for joining our discussion.